Christ, in whom is hidden all treasures of wisdom and knowledge. Christ is the standard by which all is measured. And so to deny Christ is to result in absurdity. So you don't have that option. You don't have the option of denying the God of Christianity, because everything all the preconditions of intelligibility, everything we have to assume in order to get off the ground intellectually is based on the character of God. So if we go to morality, right, a moral standard, that is based on the character of God. We know that morality is invariant. It doesn't change. If I go to Mexico, morality doesn't change. Maybe the people's practices change, but it's still wrong to torture children, right? Morality didn't change. We know that it's something that's absolute, right? It applies to everyone. There's no person that is allowed to break the moral law. And we know it's unchanging. Over time, it's not going to change. Now, in Christianity, we see this as something that is based on the character of God. God is that standard that's absolute, unchanging, invariant. He's immaterial, right? Morality you can't find growing somewhere on a tree. So we have to assume that the God of Christianity exists in order to even have a moral framework. And that's morality, but it applies also to the other preconditions of intelligibility, which would be the laws of logic. Laws of logic possess the same nature as morality. They are also absolute, unchanging, invariable. They're also non-material, just like the God of Christianity, right? And the reason is because, as Romans 1 says, God has given knowledge to unbelievers even. They know that they can use these tools because the God of Christianity exists, and they know he exists internally. Okay? So to try to put it in a little maybe more nutshell, to simpler terms, the proof for God's existence is that without him you cannot prove anything. Or as Van Til said, atheism presupposes theism. If you want to try to give me arguments for any other God, idol, right, that is not Christian, or atheism, or any other philosophical system that is not Christian, you have to start with the God of Christianity. Otherwise, I'd like to know where you get these invariable, absolute, unchanging standards. Okay? So this gives you kind of a preview of where we're going and how we're going to use this apologetic. But that's the difference between the virtuously circular and the viciously circular argument. The viciously circular argument just says, God exists because the Bible tells me so. Why does the Bible tell me so? Because God exists. It goes in a circle, okay? The virtuously circular argument says, God exists because without him I can't prove anything. I can't even make sense of the question that I'm asking or the statement I'm making, all right? And every worldview we talked about has that circle. Every single one of them has an ultimate standard. And for you to have an ultimate standard, there can't be anything above it. So it has to validate itself somehow. The easy one to understand is human reason. When someone gives a reason for why human reason is their ultimate authority, they're arguing in a circle because they're giving you reasons for reason, or they're using their memory to validate their memory. And so every unbelieving system has the same thing going on. The difference is unbelieving systems cannot account for the preconditions of intelligibility. They cannot give us what we have to assume in order for science to work, in order for us to even brush our teeth, right? I remember I mentioned the toothbrush argument for God's existence. You can use anything in this world, and you can show that it is the God of Christianity that people have to assume in order for them to live their daily lives. Okay? The reason I spent time on that is because it's a key concept, but it's also kind of a hard one. We're not used to thinking this way. We just assume things, right? Because that's the world God made. But getting behind that and examining the presuppositions and the ultimate authorities, that's where we're just not used to it. You know, we start out with, we all know that we can reasonably approach the world. Why? Why do we know that? Well, it's only one God, only one religious system can account for that. Here's the answer. The character of God is the answer to the preconditions of intelligibility. This is why we can have objective morality and everything else that you see listed here. I'm going to not go over all these references, but I am going to give you kind of the theology here. Here's some of the preconditions of intelligibility. This is the laws of logic. So the law of non-contradiction. There are no contradictions in God due to his honesty. It is the moral component of God that upholds the idea that there cannot exist two diametrically opposed propositions. Timothy is warned by Paul to avoid contradictions. And so the law of non-contradiction basically says that you can't you can't have A and not A in the same sense, in the same way. You can't have a proposition. I can't say the chair is there and it's also not there. It's either there or it's not there, right? You can't have contradictions. Well, why not? Well, because we have a God who is not a God of contradictions. That would amount to a lie. God is not a liar. Whenever God identifies a thing as possessing a distinct identity from other things, he is upholding the identity does exist. So in other words, there is a difference between me and you. Now, a lot of Eastern religions have a problem. They say all is one. So we're all the same thing. Why is there any distinction then between me and the outside world? How come I'm thinking and I don't know your thoughts? There's a problem there. Now, in a Trinity, in a God who is diversity and unity, we have a reason for believing that we can have diversity and unity. We can have identity. I can have personhood. It's a little more philosophical, but we assume these things all the time. Law of the excluded middle. The Bible constantly affirms there cannot exist a situation in which something both is the case and is not the case. That's very similar to the law of non-contradiction. Usually the law of non-contradiction is the one that we talk about the most. Laws of morality. God is the standard for morality. Reliability of sense perception. We can go to the New Testament. We can go to 1 John. What we've seen with our hands, what our eyes have seen, or what we've seen with our eyes. We don't see with our hands. Felt with our hands concerning the word of life. Sense perception has its validity in who God is. The way he is the creator. That's what this all comes down to, really. The uniformity of nature. God being the creator. You can look up these references later if you want. Laws of mathematics. Again, have their origin in God. In addition, the preconditions of intelligibility must be invariable, absolute, and unchanging. Three obvious characteristics of the biblical God. If they are not, we have reason to doubt them. For instance, the law of logic must always be the same in every situation for us to make use of them. Science depends on this.